Okay, we're going live for real in just a few moments. So I'll just wait until the o'clock. Good time, I guess, to make sure that audio is working and everything. So just give me a shout, make sure everyone can hear me. And yeah, like I say, if we get the go ahead, then we'll be starting in just a few moments. So I'll just put some background music on and then we'll crack on. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. It is good to be back. I'm going to have the background music on just so we've got something to listen to if I am quiet at any point. But just let me know if the mix is not quite right and I'll attempt to sort it out. So, yes, this is the start of Pest in Practice Season 2. And we're kind of switching tack a little bit, which is exciting. We're going to be taking a look at building an official news site for Pest PHP. And the goal is that for Pest v2 you're going to be able to take a look at this news site and see all the great content that is available for Pest, find out what's new, see official announcements, you'll be able to watch tutorials and video information, be that official or by the community. So pretty exciting that we are going to do this, and certainly looking forward to building it out. It's always fun to start a new Laravel project. And so building it out, it made sense to obviously stream this as a part of Pest in Practice, because we will be writing many pest tests for it. So you'll get to see kind of how the core team works on that, and who knows, we might be able to get a few members of the core team on board as we go along. I'm going to jump straight in. Today is mainly going to be setting up the project, showing you how I like to get started with a new Laravel application, and obviously answering any questions. Hopefully you can see the screen okay. Let me know if there's any problems. I've got the chat up on another screen, so hopefully I see it. And let's pest this. All right. So I actually like to start a new Laravel project with a custom template that I have. Here we go. So I'll just bring this in here, and we want to create this as news.pest.php. Okay, so this is just installing, and we can then run Composer. Oh, I better CD first. So CD into news, Composer update, just because the Composer dependencies sometimes get outdated. Could probably change that with a GitHub action, but just never really need to. Anyhow, hopefully, if we now come here, we should have a Laravel application. Obviously, I'm using Valet, which is why I can access this at the .test domain. But why do I actually have like this custom template? Well, there are a few tools that I really like to use when I'm developing, and I want to get up and running with those tools quickly. I don't want to have to configure them for every single Laravel project. So I'll quickly introduce you to the tool set that I will use to build this application. And in honesty, a lot of these tools came from working on Pest. Like, I saw that the Pest project was using them and really grew to love the tool set. So obviously, first and foremost, Pest PHP, configured by default. So you can see we have our Pest file, things are set up as you would expect there. We also have PHP CS Fixer, and I prefer quite strict rules. So for example, well, first of all, we load in the Symfony, the Symfony preset. If you don't know what PHP CS Fixer is, it's basically something that will automatically style and lint your PHP code for you, which is super useful. You can see one thing I do is, for example, make sure the traits are ordered alphabetically. I also make sure that any class that isn't abstract is final. Now, that may be a bit too strict in certain projects, but I actually like to have that on by default, and if I want to turn it off later down the line, I'll go and turn it off. But I kind of like that happening automatically for me. Also, we use declare strict types. So all files will have declare strict types automatically appended at the top of the file, which is useful. It means I don't have to remember to do it. And yeah, we can actually ask this to run with composer lint, and that will automatically run PHP CS Fixer. You can see that script is set up here. There we go. So it's just basically an alias for running PHP CS Fixer manually. We also have PHP stan and Laravel configured, and this is another reason why I have like a full project built out. If I go into the PHP stan neon.dist, you can see I've got level set to max. This is quite brutal, certainly with the latest version of PHP stan and Laravel. But out of the box, Laravel isn't 100% compatible with the max level on PHP stan. Like, there just aren't the type hints on some of the classes that come with the Laravel scaffolding. And so I've gone through, and let me try and find an example. Let's go to the HTTP kernel. You can see I've gone through and updated in my personal template the arrays to use the correct highlighting for PHP stan. Now, again, if you don't know what PHP stan is, it's basically a static analysis program that allows you to check types in your PHP application as though PHP were a strongly typed language. Now, obviously, PHP isn't a strongly typed language, but we can get around that basically by using doc blocks. So you'll see us using plenty of that, and hopefully over time you're going to see that PHP stan is really nice, helps us catch a lot of errors, and it gives us also some really nice syntax highlighting, some IDE auto-completion for IDEs that support things like generics, which PHP Storm does. Lars says the mixed type is a pain in a Laravel application. Yes, it is. Here's my ruling on that. If I can use native types, I will, and I won't use the doc blocks. The only time I use the doc block types is if I need to add extra information on top of what is already there. So hopefully you'll see me doing that as we go along, but that's kind of my general rule of thumb. Hello Samuel, great to have you with us. Okay, so we have a basic setup here, everything's working. The first thing I like to do as well, and I actually got this little tip from Caleb Porcio, rather than worrying about setting up things like MySQL databases, I'm just going to touch database.sqlite, and I'm going to head into my .m file, and I'm just going to change this to SQLite, and we'll just use SQLite. Like, until we have need to use something that isn't SQLite, we'll just use SQLite. In all honesty, I feel like this isn't going to be super database intensive, especially at first. So SQLite's just fine. And then when we need to change to MySQL, maybe next episode or the episode after, that's when we'll make that switch, but let's not worry about configuring that at the moment. Now, what is this new site going to contain? Well, I have a few things in mind. So basically the idea is it's somewhere where people can come and check things out. So obviously we're going to need some form of article posts, for example. We need to be able to have authors, so people who are authorized to be able to go and create these posts, these articles. If you've ever used like the Laravel news website, they have a really nice feature called community links, which is where any member of the Laravel community can go and post a link that goes through a short verification process. And once the link is verified, it's available on the site. And that link could be a GitHub package, it could be a blog post, it could be a video. That's a really nice way of doing things. I really like that. I think it would be nice to have something similar on Pest. Obviously, if you're going to have a news site, it's nice to be able to keep updated via email. So an email subscription service would be really good for this. And Frake was kind enough to give us a mail coach license for this site. So thank you so much to Frake and Sparsy for the awesome content they provide. So hopefully we'll be getting a mail coach integration in for our newsletter, and you'll be able to see that. Certainly go check out Mailcoach if you have anything to do with needing to send out newsletters or bulk newsletters and you want to handle that manually rather than relying on an expensive third-party service to do it for you. Also, it would be nice to have like a tested with Pest, so projects that are or have full test Pest suites that we want to kind of showcase and say, hey, go and look at this if you want to see Pest being used in a real project. And also maybe a really nice way of showing Pest plugins. It'll be really nice to work on as well. Obviously some of these things are out there and far future, and other things are closer. I think priority number one is certainly getting articles up and running and making sure that we can actually create an article and that we're able to see an article and read an article. So we're going to start with that. Okay, that's out of the way. Let's open up Safari here, and I'm actually going to try out Wink. So Wink is a package by Mohammed. Mohammed works on the Laravel team, and it's actually used for the official Laravel blog and for divinglaravel.com, which I think is Mohammed's personal blog. So I'm pretty content to say that it should be a good experience. Nuno recommended it. I think we can at least try it. If it's not going to work for our needs, we can roll back and try something else. That's the beauty of Git, right? Speaking of which, let's do a quick Git init. And why don't we go ahead and make this a bit bigger. Let's just say initial install. I don't know why I'm pushing. I've not got anywhere to push to yet. Okay, and while that's doing its thing, we'll come down here, just take a look at the install steps. So it looks like it's a simple composer dependency. Then we're going to run PHP artisan wink install, and obviously we need to link our storage so that it can display things like images. Then it looks like we configure the database before finally running wink migrate, which I assume is going to give us all of Wink's different tables that we can make use of. Let's see if this is done. Okay, yep, commit. Oh wow. Feel like I should just go for a console commit. There we go. And I don't want to actually push because I've not got anywhere to push. Okay, let's grab composer require and let's run it in here. There we go, installing. Let's run this. Looks like we got our config file. And yeah, let's link our storage. All well and good. Okay, let's go to the wink.php file and take a look at what we've got. Okay, yeah, fair dues. I think because of... Okay, so I assume it's given us a database connection called Wink because you could store basically everything to do with your blog completely separately to your main application. However, our application is basically a blog with extra bits added on top. So I think what I'll probably do is actually change this out to just use the default database connection. That should make it easier to prepare our queries. Relationships should be nice and easy if we want to link to anything that is in Wink. And then also, it just makes things simpler when it comes to testing. We're not having to manage 2 databases for testing. We can do everything with a single database. Again, if that becomes too much for the application, we can change it down the road. But I think to start, we'll do that. Storage disks and storage path. Looks fine. We have the Wink domain. I don't think we can ignore that at the moment, again for the same reasons I mentioned earlier. The path, which is Wink, so that's how we're going to access the admin panel for Wink. Middleware group is web. We might actually change to that a little later, but I do believe that Wink is completely behind a separate guard anyway, so we probably don't need to add anything. Okay, preview link in the editor. Okay, so I think we'll come back to this. In fact, we might even be able to build this functionality out in the stream today. That'd be nice. And then the editor, which I think we'll leave as is, because if there are different authors working on this, some might prefer rich text and others might prefer Markdown. Okay, so first things first, I think, is this DB connection. And I'm going to use a nested env and just say DB connection, and let's have a default of SQLite. So it's basically always going to fall back to the base database connection. And once we've configured that, we should be able to run PHP Artisan Wink migrate. Yeah, it's fine. Oh, by the way, I have some shortcuts for PHP Artisan things. So if you see me type in PAM or PAMF, it's basically PHP Artisan migrate fresh, for example. And if you see me typing A, that's just a shortcut for PHP Artisan. And if you use PHP Artisan a lot, you should definitely go ahead and create those shortcuts, because it gets boring having to configure that all the time. Okay, Wink is ready for use. You may log in using admin@mail.com and password. All right, let's try this. So /Wink. Very nice. Let's go log in with this password. Okay, that's pretty good, isn't it? Here we are. And let's see if we can do this. I'm going to write Markdown. Hello world. My first blog post on news.pestphp.com. Let's do a little bit of Markdown as well. And let's publish it. Post published. Okay, and I do believe Wink is completely headless, so you can see, yeah, headless. Doesn't have any opinions on how you display your content, but you can access via these models. So let's actually head into our terminal again, and to prove that it worked, we'll open PHP Artisan Tinker, and let's say Wink, is it Wink post all, and here we go. Hey, we're up and running with Wink. All right. Pretty happy so far. Now, one of the things that we want to be able to do, okay, yeah, this looks like the preview, right? So I'm getting a 404 because we need to handle that ourselves, which is absolutely fine. But I want to configure this first. In, where was it? Preview path. Yeah, I don't much like this, because that means we have to handle the slug as the first thing, and it certainly shouldn't be the first thing. I'm thinking maybe like Wink and then posts and then post slug, something like that, right? I don't know whether Wink posts is already taken. Let me just do a root list. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with Wink so far. Can we grep for Wink? Yes, we can. Spread that out a second. Just want to make sure that posts isn't going to... okay, yeah. So there's like an API with it. That's pretty sweet. There are already name spacing for wink.post. But this is a preview, and my idea was like wink would be, seen as wink is how we access the application, but maybe I want to do like just wink preview then, and then the post slug. Maybe that's a nicer way of doing it, and we can always change that later on. Let's come back. Yeah, so you can see. Okay. Hold in then. Am I doing something wrong there? What's that coming up with this time? Wink post hello world. Is that because it was prepended with a /? Yes. Okay. So by default, it actually, you can see it actually goes to wink posts hello world if you don't have the / at the start of the preview URL. So that might actually be a very nice way to handle this. The only thing is, sorry, these are early decisions, so we just have to make the right ones. That this URL here is very similar, and we want something that's like going to be super easy to catch. So I think actually I might go for wink preview posts, and then we know for absolute certain that the link is a preview, and we can handle everything in Laravel from there on out. Okay, I think it's time to get started with some tests. We need to make sure that wink is going to be configured and refreshed because it's refreshed differently. So let's do that in setup. I don't know whether we're going to have a few issues with lazily refresh database here because we're doing extra migrations after the fact. So I think I'm just going to switch to refresh database for now. And let's say this artisan, I want to migrate, and I want to migrate a certain path. Now the reason I'm not just calling wink migrate is because wink migrate did just create a user for us, right? In fact, let's just have a look at what it's actually doing. Yeah, so it checks basically, and oh, hold in. Or not, we can call it the count. Yeah, but this is the case that this will actually fire first, right? So why don't we just steal this path and we'll do it slightly manually. I think that's the better way. Okay, so that means that every test, or every feature test I should say, is going to migrate the database for us, which is all of our standard migrations, and then it will run setup and also add the wink migrations in, and that will allow us to get up and running quite quickly. So our test is basically going to be something along the lines of making sure that somebody who is an author, a wink author, is able to preview a post. So let's say a make, and we need to obviously handle that controller, right? So let's say a make controller, and this is going to be like wink / preview. I'm trying to remember what we actually, my memory is absolutely shocking, isn't it? Wink preview posts, so wink preview posts, and then maybe like a post controller, or I guess even just post controller here, right? And we want a test. So as of a recent Laravel version, you can actually just do --pest, and you will get a matching test for your controller. You can see it says test created successfully, which is super useful. And if we come back, you can see we have a nicely nested post controller test. So it allows an administrator or an author to view a preview post. Now, is there anything like a wink author factory? Doesn't look like it. That's not a problem, we can create our own one. So to do that, we just have to come in and say a make factory. That's very useful, thank you. So wink author factory. I don't really want the wink prefix ideally. Just author factory, I think. Let's go to the author factory. And I think it will, because the models aren't in our top level, I think it will kick up a bit of a fuss. So we can prefix the model, which is going to be a string. It's actually technically a class string, but I don't think that PHP Stan will throw up a fuss if it's just string here. And it's going to be a wink author. So wink author class. What are you complaining about? Of course, okay. So the problem here is that model in the factory doesn't have a type in, and you can't ever write type ins like that. Let's have a quick look. It's already got a type in on it, so that should be absolutely fine. We should be able to just leave it, and PHP Stan will pick it up from the base. Here we have a definition. You can add return type ins, even if the parent doesn't have those type ins. So keep that one in mind. Return type ins are fine because you're narrowing the type of what you already know to be the case. But obviously with top level type ins or like method type ins, you can't do those. We can give this an array shape as well. We know that everything or every key in here is going to be a string. We're not quite sure of what the values are going to be, so we'll use mixed for that. And this is what I mean by using native type ins first, and where native type ins don't give enough information, that's where we can go and just add a little more information for PHP Stan to be aware. Okay, let's take a look at what the wink authors table actually looks like. So we have an ID which is a UUID, it's a varchar. We have a slug. We have a name, email, password, bio, avatar which is nullable, and then the rest is quite generic. I'm not sure what meta is. I'm sure that we'll find out at some point in the future. But let's start with these. So ID, slug, name, email, password, and bio. So ID is going to be this. Faker, give me a unique UUID. Name, this faker name. I do believe between those there was slug and email. So slug, this faker, give me a unique slug. Email, this faker, unique safe email. Okay, I'm just going to restart the music here. It seems to have given up on us. Doesn't want to let me do that. No worries. Let's just carry on anyway. Password. So you might be tempted to do something like hash make password. That's actually going to slow your factories down a lot. So the better thing to do is just head into Tinkerwell or into PHP Artisan Tinker, and you can do hash make password like that instead, and just grab the string directly. Like this will still equate to the password, but then it's not having to do all the computational stuff in the background. So that's a useful one to keep in mind. And then we have bio, which is, I imagine, just like about yourself as the author. So let's just do this faker paragraph. Okay, and there's our definition. Yeah, I'm not bothered about adding array shape. Like the PHP Storm specific stuff I don't really like. Try to keep it generic if I can for people using other IDEs. And now we have an author factory. So we can head back to our test and we can create an author factory. Now obviously, because we don't have access to the author model, Lars, how come it's necessary to set faker to unique? It's right, okay. So obviously, like email address, we don't want two emails being the same. And imagine if we, in a test, create a factory, or we want 30 authors. Okay. Well, there's a high chance that faker is actually going to return to us For the UUID, it may well be unnecessary, but for the slug and safe email, yeah, there's a high chance that Fake is actually going to return the exact same one more than once. So we don't want that. We want the slug and the email to be unique. So that's why I prefix with unique. And it could well be that UUID, as part of the definition, is unique, but Faker could also be pulling UUID from some set pool of UUIDs. So just to make sure it doesn't return the same one more than once, when we build, say, 30 models, we'll use unique. Okay, it allows an author to view posts. So we can obviously now use author factory. I would prefer to do author factory, but we don't actually have access to set that on the Wink author, so like Wink author factory. Instead, what I think I'm going to do is use a little tip that was on in a Twitter thread a couple of months back now, but I actually really liked it, and that is just creating some functions in the pest files for building these models and not having to pull in the correct class. So for example, we can say function author, right? And you could pass some attributes in there, but I'm not going to worry about that just for now. And this is going to return an author factory. Okay. And so yeah, we'll return new author factory. And yeah, I do believe that you can pass into author factory, into a factory, where's the constructor? Yeah, you can pass in a bunch of stuff, but I'm not really that bothered at the moment, because I prefer just to chain it on. I think it looks nicer chained on. This will basically allow us though to say author, create, like that, and that will give us an author. So just to make sure when we're okay with this, if we then dump the count of Wink author, okay, so this is a PHP Storm thing. You just have to set the CLI interpreter on new projects. And here we go, count of 1. Yes, I do have GitHub Copilot, Lars. I'm enjoying it. I think my friend Oliver put it right earlier today when we were discussing it, and he said it's great, but you spend more time reading the Copilot code than actually than how long it would take you just to write that code in the first place, which is true. And usually, yeah, it needs a bit of refactoring. It is very impressive though. Yeah, I'm quite mind blown and a little bit scared, but yeah. Hey Owen, great to have you with us. Yeah, okay, so we can create an author, and what we want to say is if there is a post that is in preview, an author should be able to view it. So let me have a quick look at how. Is there like a Wink service provider? Yes, there is. AuthGuard. This is exactly what we want. So yeah, auth providers, Wink authors. It uses a driver eloquent, obviously a model of Wink author class. This is what I'm actually more interested in. It creates a new guard called Wink, and it sets the driver to session and the provider to Wink authors. I think we actually want this as our default guard because an author is going to be our standard, what you would usually use for users in your Laravel application, right? So I think we actually want Wink as our default guard. We can set that, I think, in auth. Defaults is going to be Wink. And I think what that means is that we could say this acting as, and Wink, is Wink author authenticatable? Please be, it is. You're a dream, Mohammed. So we can say author equals, yeah, so acting as that author. Let's make a get request to, and we need a post as well, obviously. But yeah, look at that. That's crazy, isn't it? Like GitHub Copilot's just suggested that. Obviously, there is a slight problem. We don't actually have a root for this. I don't know if anyone knows Wink better than me, then tell me if I'm wrong. But I don't know that we can actually set this up behind a root or whether we just have to pass it in manually. So for now, we'll do the boring thing and pass it in manually. So we'll get posts, and then obviously we need to create a post, which will be something like that, and close that out, and then I want to assert that that's okay, and that's our basic test, right? We need to obviously create the post, which is going to mean just creating another factory basically, and perhaps the most important factory of all, because we're going to be creating posts a lot in our tests. So let's make it's definitely called posts, isn't it? Wink posts, yes. So we'll make a post factory, and let's go to that post factory, and again this is going to return an array with string and mixed. Get rid of that. Let's set the model to wink post. Happy days. And then let's take a look at our wink posts structure. Oh, what's happened there? It seems to have disappeared on us, or it could just be me. A wink migrate, was it? Oh, I know what it is. One other thing I need to do in the php unit.xml.dis file, I need to go and set this, or uncomment this, so that my tests don't affect my actual database, which is exactly what happened there. So that's important to remember to do. Wink posts. Let's look at the structure. So we have the ID, which again is a UUID, the slug, title, excerpt, the body, whether it's published, when it was or will be published, I imagine, the featured image caption. Interesting that featured image caption is non-nullable, but featured image is nullable. Author, so we have to have an author, and then whether it's markdown or not. I guess that's used maybe to render the content when you actually output it. So we can make a start with this, and then we'll answer some of those questions soon. Let's have a unique UUID. Let's again have a unique slug. Let's have the title, which is going to be this faker sentence, and might work on the casing for that. It's not massively important, but I do like my factories to be as close to reality as possible. And no end of times where you've like launched a staging site and the client's looked at it and is like, "What's lorem ipsum? That's not what we asked you to put on the site." And yeah. So I tried to make my factories as close to real life as possible, within reason. Although if Nuno doesn't know what lorem ipsum is, there's a bigger problem, isn't there? Let's do excerpt, and I kind of want the excerpt to be like a little bit of the content, which I think is body. So what you can do is you can actually have a function here, and this is an array of attributes, and these are basically the built attributes just before the model gets created. So what you can say is, well, we know these attributes are going to be, or is going to contain a body, right? So we can say, okay, give me a body, but I don't want all of the body. Let's say string, and then let me have a look. Limit, this will do us. Limit the number of characters in a string. So we could say, give me this, but only return the first, I don't know, 80 characters, right? And then we can have the body, which is going to be this faker paragraphs, and let's say like 5 paragraphs, and we want it as text. Okay, so that will give us some nice content. Now the content in reality could be markdown, as we saw in the database. So we may at some point want to have a method on here that lets us use markdown instead of just like a basic body, or it could even be like HTML, I imagine. And if that was the case, we need to be able to fake there being HTML so that we could test that. But for the time being, let's just use 5 paragraphs. We have published. And do we want default to be published? I think we do. I think by default, if you create a post, you're expecting that it exists, and you want to be quite specific and say the post in this test doesn't exist. So that makes the most sense to me anyway. Publish date is going to be, let's say, now sub a day. So by default, it was published yesterday. We can say featured image, which I'm going to leave out. I'm going to leave as null. But then this featured image caption is intriguing. Let's see if we can find something quickly on this. There's no reference to caption. I wonder if we can just pass an empty string into there. I tell you the other thing we could do. Let's try one other thing. Let's come back to here, which obviously now is gone, and I'm going to have to. Did I? Oh, where's that gone? Scuppered myself a little bit here, haven't I? When did I last run? Wink migrate. Here we go. So admin@mail.com. Oh, great. I'll tell you what we could do. Let's do a tinker, and let's do author factory, new, create, and let's say email, and we may have to actually prefix this with a proper namespace. I don't know whether it's aliased. I don't think it's aliased. Email can be Luke at downing.tech. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Let's go to back to the author factory for 1 second. Okay. Okay. That's good to know. So it looks like as well we need to use unique as a method, but that's not a problem. And now we should be able to log in as Luke at downing.tech and the password of password. And we're in. Let's create a new post, markdown, and we just wanted to see what that string value looks like in reality. So let's say hello world again, and hello world here. Publish, and let's come into data, refresh. Featured image caption is empty. Oh, just an empty string. Okay. Is that done for us then? That might be done for us. Is that just a quirk of SQLite? I really don't feel like that is not nullable. So we'll come back to that. If we have to put it in there, we'll put it in there. Author ID. So author ID is going to be basically an author. And that's going to obviously return our author factory for us, which is really nice. Created at, I'm not bothered about. Dated at, I'm not bothered about. And then there's meta and markdown, which I think we can leave by default. So hopefully, if we now go to our pest.php file, we can say, here's a function called post. It's going to return a post factory. Again, you don't have to do this, but I think it's really nice to be able to access these factories as quick global functions in your tests. Let's return a new post factory, or rather post factory new. Change this one here as well. And yeah, you can pass attributes into there, but I prefer to pass them to the create method. Okay, so back to our test. Post controller test. We can say post equals post, and we can say for author, and hopefully this will work as long as the wink post has an author. Yes, it does. Yeah. So we can say post for author create, and yeah, we just want to go and visit the post. I think that this should basically be our test. Call to undefined method wink author. So where's this coming from? Line 5. Oh, is this being caused? Yeah. Yeah. So it's being caused because of how it's looking at the relationship. So we just have to change it for that instead, I think. Not null constraint failed. Featured image. Look at that. It hit us. It hit us in the end, didn't it? So what was it? Featured image caption. Where did it go? I like these to be in the same order. Just above author. Featured image caption is going to be null. Idiot, sorry. Is going to be an empty string. Okay, well, look at that, a passing test. Now, how that passed is another question, but yeah, that kind of is working. One thing I want to do, because of how it's been or how it is configured, I don't want to have to do this every time I want to link a post to a certain author. So I think what I will do instead is say, let's have a public function on the post factory called forAuthor. This is going to return itself, or I think technically it returns a static, but it's going to return itself because obviously when we run lint, this post factory is going to become final. And what we'll say is return this for, and you can pass in here a model or a factory. So it's either an author factory or an author, or wink author. Author. So it passes that author in under the name author, and that obviously then returns itself. Okay, let's go back. So we can just say for author, author, and we can create. And technically, I think we could even switch that round and have the author create posts, but this is quite declarative. Okay, the test is passing. Nuno recently added a dump and die to Laravel's test response that lets you have a look at what's actually going on here. So let's have a quick look at what is taking place. Now, this is actually outputting wink preview posts. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's have a look at what actually happens. Here's a post. Wink preview posts. It gave us a 404. Is it just taking anything under the wink name? Which could well be the case. Like if I go preview posts, yeah, now I get a not found. Which gives me, okay, let's go for that instead then. I will go back to wink.php and let's get rid of the wink prefix and just have preview posts, post slug. And obviously now it's also just hit me that we can actually have this as a root still. So let's go to web.php. We're going to get rid of all of this built-in stuff. And let's say root get. The URI is obviously the same, so preview posts and then slug. But that's actually the post, right? And it looks at the slug column. I think that's how we do it. We'll find out in just a moment. And this is going to go to our post controller, which is this preview. So I may rename this just a preview controller because I think it's basically going to have a single use in this instance. So yeah, I may well do that. And this now can be preview.posts. Okay, so let's now go back to our test where we can change this for root preview.posts, and we can just pass the post in as our second parameter. And if we run this again, we should still be failing. Yeah, so this is a little problem with the setup I have. I need to actually go and change this, but basically Laravel comes with this controller. In order for it to work with the things we've configured, you just need to make it abstract instead of a standard class. I'm going to run composer lint, make sure everything's up to date. Okay, so invalid root action post controller, I would expect that. Let's come into here and make this invocable. So if you are only doing a single thing in a controller, in this case we are, it's just for previewing, then you can actually use invoke, and that is a single action controller. You don't have to define any methods, or you don't have to do anything in your root file other than drop the controller fully qualified class name in here. Everything else will just work. And obviously here we should be able to get a wink post. Okay, and this should return to us like a view, depending on the front end stack that we're going to end up using for this. So this is actually quite interesting. I haven't yet decided on the front end stack. I'm intrigued by Inertia. I've used it briefly in another project. I'm very much considering it, but I haven't gone 100% on that yet. I'm most familiar with Livewire. I used Livewire all the time, like literally since it came out. Livewire was the thing I've used, but you know, I don't like to lock myself down to a single stack. Or do we just go for like plain Blade with standard form submissions? I mean, it's not exactly a super duper like needs all the magic in the world kind of site, is it? It's there's probably like one form on there or two forms, and everything else is just content. So I've yet to decide. I don't want to lock us down. I think certainly for the Wink preview, it's basically like admin. So for this to return a view, I don't think is a problem. So this could just return a view. And let's say return view. Let's say preview.post. And obviously we need to pass in a post. So we'll pass a post in. And we need to create this view. I may just call it wink.preview.post because that's kind of, well, let's say admin.preview.post. And I'm going to actually refactor where post controller sits in just a moment. So I'm using Laravel IDEA to be able to quickly generate that view, which is really nice. I really like Laravel IDEA. Yeah, I agree, Lars. I think Blade certainly seems fine for now. And after perhaps more discussion, I can always come back and change that in the future. Now this passes. Like this is a working test at this point. And if I was to come in here and dump and die the post, we're obviously going to get that post there, the wink post. However, I'm pretty sure that if I come back here and we don't do acting as, so we're just a guest, right? I still pass, which is not good. We do not want any random person being able to view this page. So let's say it cannot be accessed by a guest. Okay. And all we need to say here is I think we want to post. So, or we don't need to do that, do we? We can just say this get root preview.post. And again, I'm going to rename that to admin.preview.posts. And then we can just say post create. And let's assert a redirect to, now does Wink have root set up? I don't think it has a, no, it doesn't look like it. However, we can just say /wink. So if you try to access this and you're not logged in, make sure that we get redirected to the Wink page. If I run that, it's going to say it was a 200 response, which is exactly what we expected. So in order to fix this, we can just go to our web.php file and we can give this some middleware. So let's say middleware auth. Let's have a look. It's going to give us a 500, so I must have missed something somewhere. Let's take a look at what it is, and we can do that by saying this without exception handling. So root login not defined. Where did we actually? Oh, of course. Okay. So is this? I thought I'd changed the default guard though to Wink, right? I mean, that works. Let's have a look quickly at, is it auth guard? Yeah, it's using Wink. It probably just must still go through that same middleware, perhaps. Anyhow, it does now seem to be reacting to us and redirecting to /Wink, which is nice. So I think at this point it would be good. Yeah, it's a default Laravel thing, but I wasn't sure whether changing the guard. I guess changing the guard doesn't change any of the middleware. That's fair point. So it's still going to go through that middleware if it's going through the web middleware, which it is. Anyway, so allows an author to view a preview post. That works okay, but if you're a guest, you can't get through. Now at this point, I think we want to actually change a few things. So first, let's update this to be admin. And this is a really nice thing about writing these tests at the same time. We instantly can see, oh no, things didn't quite work. However, as long as we go and update these, will everything work? And if everything works, you know that you don't have to change anything else. And whatever you've just altered is still up and running. So that's really nice. Let's carry on. I have admin.preview.posts, but you'll see now that we've put this under Wink. So I think what I want to do is F6 and move this from Wink to admin. So let's do that. And because Pest doesn't have any namespaces or doesn't need any namespaces, you certainly can add namespaces if you want. But because it doesn't need any namespaces, we can very easily just move these tests around like that. The other thing is this post controller, which is currently now sat under Wink still, and we want to move it to admin. The only other thing I'm wondering is, are there other previews? So here's the question, right? Let's go back to Wink, and can we create, instead of a new post, can we create a new page? Pages, new page. Let's say hello world. Something cool. Save. That's interesting. It does say it's saved. So where does this become available? There's no preview on this. So you see, what I'm wondering is, are there other preview links? I'm tempted to say that there are not other preview links. And if that's the case, then that's absolutely fine. In fact, in all honesty, I don't know that we'll be using the pages feature all that much anyway. But what I was wondering, I guess, is, do I need to actually have separate things set up for each type of preview? Because if not, I'm thinking of actually just renaming this to preview controller. And rather than admin.preview.post, just admin.preview, and you pass the post in like that. I need to actually just revert that a second, do it the other way around. Let's go to the root admin.preview. And then in our test, we obviously need to get rid of those two, make sure that still works, which it does. And then in our preview controller, we're going to get rid of preview.post, create that view, and get rid of this view here. So now we have admin, preview, test still pass, and everything's good. Okay, that's pretty nice. I'm quite happy with that. We just run lint, so we get all of our nice highlight syntax back, and also we get our enforce, declare strict types, and final classes. And we have a very basic admin preview. And if we were to go to this view here, and let's say something like post, do we have content? So here's something that is interesting to me. Like, does the wink post have any? No, so we don't have type hints for the data on there. I may, after the stream, just ask what people have been doing for that. I personally like having those type hints, but I don't know whether Mohammed would accept a PR that added them. If so, I may well go and do that so that we can have those type hints for our model, which would be really nice. Anyhow, if we output that and we come back into here and we preview, here we have hello world, which is absolutely brilliant. But let's create a new incognito window so we're basically signed in as somebody else. And let's visit, and yeah, we get taken straight to the Wink admin page. Now there's another thing we could do instead, which would be 404ing instead. Now the reason we might want to do that is because technically if it goes to the admin page, it's kind of giving a hint that something does exist. But then again, like, is that a big problem? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't particularly think it's a big problem. And maybe if we made the 404s also go to the admin page, then it really wouldn't be much of an issue at all, would it? Okay, so cool. We have our very first everything set up. I'm going to run a composer test, which basically runs a bunch of things. It runs the composer lint check. It also, as you can see, is running PHP stan, and then it's going to attempt to run pest as well. Now in this case, it's going to say function author not found. So this is interesting in post factory, of course. So this is because it's a global function and it's not being loaded in for PHP stan to understand. I think in this case, because this is underneath, and we may use these factories in seeders as well, which shouldn't understand that pest has functions. Maybe here we just do author factory new like that. Let's run this again. Okay, everyone's happy. Okay, so we have a pretty nice setup there, and we have our first two tests. We're actually checking that preview is indeed accessible, that you can go to it as an administrator or as an author, and you can see the post you're currently working on. We've set up our Laravel test suite, our pest test suite, our Laravel application. We have the tools that we want to use, and we're not 100% decided on that front end stack, but at the moment I think we can just go ahead and use Laravel's built-in blade, and if we want to use something that's perhaps a little more powerful or more dynamic going forward, we can always switch out to that once we've got a feel for how things are going. One other thing I want to do at this point, so you can see we can run these and we know that this is working if we run those and they pass. One thing I want to do is actually add a new route here, and I like to do this because it helps me to understand that things definitely are grouped correctly and that everything in that one file has the correct middleware. So I'm going to create an admin.php routes file, and basically what I'm going to do is copy this code here, and I'm going to move it from web into admin.php, and I'm going to remove this middleware here. Okay, and I'm actually even going to remove the admin prefix. So we're left with, oh, we can get rid of that as well now, right? Let me just do that quickly. We need to go to, I forgot it's called Wink, wink.php, and get rid of posts. It can now just go preview posts, look. Okay, Then we're going to go to our route service provider. And I'm going to set up a new route group. So we're going to say middleware is web and auth. And I think we can say prefix, which I do believe is the name prefix, I think. We'll find out in just a moment, I guess. We don't need a namespace, and it's going to load admin.php. Let's run our 2 tests again. Yeah, so admin.preview is not defined, and this is likely because it's not prefix and it's something else. Let's have a quick look. Is it just name admin dot? Haha, cool. So that fixes that. Let's go back into our admin file, and yeah, pretty happy with that. So now basically if we have another file that or another route we want to add that only administrators should be able to access, rather than having to keep adding that same auth middleware over and over again, we can instead just make sure that it goes inside the admin.php file rather than the web.php file, and we'll get that automatically. Not to say that we shouldn't still write tests, we certainly should, but it's nice to have that, and it reduces code duplication and it groups everything together in a real nice way. So I like to do that. Hello there. Where's the game? So we've actually got quite far in terms of setup. We have our Laravel application, we have Pest, we have PHP Stan, we have code CS automating our syntax, and we've created our preview route for administrators. So basically, an administrator can go in, they can use Wink, which is what we're going to, at least to start with, be using to create blog posts as administrators. And they can click this I, and they get taken to a preview page, which only guests can use. I hope that explains where we are. I feel like you've missed quite a bit. I don't think I'm going to be streaming all that much longer. I can feel my throat going. It's a lot different not having Tom on, like, talking with me, because I'm doing a lot more talking. Okay, so I hope you kind of have an idea of where we're going with this, and that's kind of giving you some things to think about when you come up to setting up your next Laravel project. Also, the usefulness of having your own Laravel template that has things how you like out of the box. Certainly that can save you a lot of time, and it helps me to be able to very quickly spin up a new side project without having to spend ages working on all the boring boilerplate stuff. I can just jump in and do the stuff that actually matters. I'm going to call it an evening there, guys. I'm going to go and spend a little bit of time relaxing before the end of the day. But thanks so much for joining me and coming along with me. I'm really happy with where we kind of got to in our first episode, and I'll be back next week showing some more stuff, and we'll carry on with this process. We'll push on a little bit further, and we'll start building out some more of those features for the Pest news site. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your evening. Take care, guys.